Thanks for pressing play. Legends and Losers is proud to be sponsored by our good friends at Oracle NetSuite. To turbocharge the growth of your business, check out netsuite.com/legends. On this extraordinary episode, we have New York baseball legend, four-time World Series champion, and pastor, the Darryl Strawberry. Darryl and I have an incredible conversation about his rise to extraordinary success, what it's like to have massive, public fall from grace, why it's okay to have an imperfect marriage. We talk about fatherhood, being a dad, as well as your relationship with your dad, and how we can all learn to come back from failure and design a legendary life. All right. The Ramones said, hey ho, let's go. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Hello, my legendary friends. My name is Christopher Lochhead, and I'm your host on Legends and Losers. We've been called a magical mystery tour of conversations. And if you're new, welcome to Legends and Losers. This is a long-form dialogue podcast where we try to cut through the bullshit to get to the real shit, so to speak. And I cannot imagine a realer, more powerful, more authentic conversation than the conversation I was lucky enough to have with our guest today, Darryl Strawberry. Now, before Darryl, let's just talk a little bit about the growth of your business. Our friends at NetSuite want to help you turbocharge your growth. For many of us, becoming an entrepreneur was a way up in the world. And then for many of us, it's a way out. That is to say, a way out of a life of struggle. So whether you're trying to go up or out, or maybe a little of both, here's the interesting thing. As your business starts to be successful and you're achieving what you want, then a new problem shows up. It's kind of how it goes in life, right? And that is, how do you manage growth? How do you scale? And it's important that we have more entrepreneurs who scale their businesses and have big success. When one small entrepreneur rises up, she often takes many other people with her. As a matter of fact, according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, from the first quarter of 1993 to the third quarter of 2016, small entrepreneurs, small businesses, which the Business Administration defines as companies with 500 or less employees, generated 61.8% of all the new jobs in America. So think about that. Small entrepreneurs generate about 62% of all the new jobs. And so when an entrepreneur rises, she or he often takes a lot of others with them. And that's why I think it'd be great if you could check out netsuite.com/legends, because what NetSuite is offering is a free growth strategy discussion with an expert in your industry, a growth review. So when you go to netsuite.com/legends, you'll be able to schedule a time to have that conversation, to look at what are the barriers to growth, what are the opportunities to growth, how you get a handle on money, how you get a handle on your cash flow, how you get a handle on your people, your orders, your customers, all of it. NetSuite is purpose-built to run every aspect of your business, and also to help you stay up to date with tax laws and requirements and filings and all of that good stuff that become more and more important as your business grows. NetSuite is a complete business management system in the cloud, giving you the power to drive the bus as opposed to being under the bus. So go to netsuite.com/legends today, and that's because it's grow time. Come on, it's grow time. That's a good one. All right, Darryl Strawberry, in addition to his famed background as a baseball player, he's also a great author. He wrote Straw, Finding My Way. He wrote with his wife, Tracy, The Imperfect Marriage, Help for Those Who Think It's Over. And he wrote Don't Give Up on Me, Shedding Light on Addiction. So here he is, pastor, speaker, and baseball legend, Darryl Strawberry.
Because the fans are the most important people that are coming to the ballpark. They come in to cheer you on, or even if they come to boo you, if they don't like you, it's always a good thing when you're not liked, because that means you're doing something good.
And at least they know who you are, right, Pastor?
I used to say that all the time, Christopher. I used to say, well, at least they know I'm in the ballpark when I was on the road playing and everybody was booing me when I was coming to the plate.
Well, I got to tell you, I was a huge Montreal Expos fan growing up. That's where I grew up. And we used to get $1 bleacher tickets back in those days. So we used to skip school, buy a bleacher ticket, and come to watch the Expos. And so I had many a thrill watching you get booed at the Montreal Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, they did. Montreal was a fun place. I mean, it really was a great city to go to, and to be able to play in Canada, and the fans up there really loved the Expos. They were really crazy about them in Montreal, and I just remember the great days of going and playing against some of the great players they had up there. When Carter was there, he eventually came over to be with us. You had Andre Dawson, you had Tim Raines, Tim Wallach, all those guys. You remember going to Montreal, and you remember it's always going to be a challenge playing against those guys in that ballpark.
Yeah, it was a thrill. Do you remember Ron LaFleur?
I do remember Ron LaFleur.
He was always one of my favorites for obvious reasons. And Pastor, you mentioned Gary Carter, so let me ask you. He was one of my heroes, and obviously, if I'm remembering this right, you guys won the World Series together, did you not?
Yes, we did. I mean, Gary came over and played a real big part of what our team was about. We got him in '85 in a trade, I think, with Hubie Brooks, Mike Fitzgerald, I believe it was. But he came over, and that was the right-hand bat that we needed in the lineup, that we really needed a strong right-hand bat in our lineup. And we needed a catcher, and he was a phenomenal catcher. But outside of his baseball, he was just a phenomenal person. The personality and the charisma he had and what he brought to the team really elevated us and helped us and took us to another level.
Yeah, and his passing was a big tragedy for me as a huge fan. Clearly left too early.
Yeah, it really was. He died very young and with brain cancer, and just a phenomenal person. Like I said before, the character of Gary was so different than what people made out of it. Why he was always smiling, and because he was happy, he was free. He was a man of faith, and he walked the right way, and he acted the right way. And it's very challenging when you play in Major League Baseball or any sports, and high profile, to live a certain way, and which you claim you are. And he did it. I mean, he was a prime example of what life is really all about and how you live life.
And so I'm curious, Pastor, what kind of time do you spend today with young and up and coming ball players or current ball players? What are your relationships there like?
I don't really have a lot of relationships with baseball. I'm not around baseball at all. I had spent some time early, a couple of years back, when I first got out of baseball. I got involved with it, but it was just not the same for me as a player. So I decided to move on to other things in life and really get into a different life of helping people. I would love to help young players and encourage them about the challenges of being in Major League Baseball, and the temptations are real. And if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to be distracted.
Yeah, I would imagine for whether it's young ball players, young athletes, or really for anybody knowing your story, you're an incredible inspiration.
Well, thank you. I mean, it took a lot of hard knocks in life, to be able to come to a place to be an inspiration to people. And we all can be an inspiration no matter what we go through. I tell people all the time, this life is a journey. We don't know what journey we're going to go on. And it's really not about how you start in this life, in this journey. It's really about how you finish in this life, in this journey. And I'm just really grateful for the fact that I was able to go through all those different things and those different challenges in my life, and to be an overcomer and to make a difference in other people's lives. Other people need help. And, the society we live in today, we need to be a voice to encourage people and say, hey, look, I've made mistakes, but look at where I'm at today. Look how I put the pieces of my mistakes and put them in the past, and I've moved forward and teach people how to move forward.
Yeah, I love what you're doing. For the last couple of weeks since we got this set up, I've been, consuming a tremendous amount of you, so to speak, your books, and you have a lot of great lectures online and so forth. And your message comes through loud and clear. And, as you know, our podcast is called Legends and Losers. And we invented this word to kind of make failure or losing a little easier to take. We call it losery. That we're all going to experience losery along the way.
Losery, yeah, no question.
And so how do you think about losery in general? And obviously, you've had some public losery.
Well, I tell you like this: losery is a part of life. Because if you don't experience that, you can never be successful. Because people think, well, I could just be successful and nothing's never going to happen. Nothing lasts forever. We walk through this life, and you're going to have some failures. It's about how you get up from the failure parts of life, and because everybody's going to face them. Everybody's going to face difficult times. It's how I decide to get up and do something different from what I used to do. And I think a lot of times, so many stay stuck. So many celebrities and athletes, it's the wrong identity, because what you do doesn't define who you are. You are a person, and you were created for something great. Not that your ability to be an athlete or whatever, a celebrity star, doesn't mean you can't be successful at that. But what about when that is taken away? What about when that comes to an end? Who are you really? And most people end up in a lot of depression, end up not moving forward because they end up stuck. They have identified themselves as the wrong person.
And you seem to be somebody who, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Pastor, but knowing your career, you had what could be argued as the highest of highs as a professional athlete. It'd be hard to believe that you could have more success, more fame, more money, more championships. And at the same time, clearly you suffered some pretty significant losery along the way. What's it like to have those super high highs and super low lows as a public figure?
Well, it's very difficult in the public eyes because there's always going to be opinions about you. And why should you be losing in life when you have everything? See, stuff and money and fame and fortune doesn't make you well on the inside. Brokenness is real. Lawlessness brings about brokenness. Broken generations of people come along and they're still broken on the inside and never gotten well on the inside. We have a tendency of, in our society, making believe in pain. And if you never deal head on and deal with your real hurts, habits, and hang-ups and what you've been through, most people are affected in childhood. The rejection of my life from my father, who was an alcoholic, beat the crap out of me. Said I'd never amount to nothing. And I clearly believed it, throughout my whole career, that I wasn't nothing. I was just a baseball player. And I told people my pain led me to my greatness, but my greatness would eventually lead me to my destructive behavior. And that's a big part of what happens in people's lives. That's why you see so many celebrities involve themselves with drugs, because they try to escape from the real pain of what's hurting inside, and they can never get well. And all these people are dying that don't have to die. Because they got addicted to drugs and they covered up the real pain inside and never got down in there and started dealing with the hurts of their life. Because hurting people are that people are hurting that are hurting inside. It's real, and if we never deal with it, we can never be a person to stand up and fight and overcome these things. If we cover ourselves in alcohol and drugs, all we're going to do is kill ourselves eventually, because that's what it does to people.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk a lot about your father. It sounds like, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm curious to get your perspective. While you were in pain, while you were doing these self-destructive things, in a lot of ways, it seems like that was a reaction to your upbringing. Is that how it felt, or how did it feel for you?
Yeah, it felt that way. Most of the time, it felt like I was so empty on the inside. I mean, I was very successful as a baseball player and hitting home runs and holding up trophies and been privileged all my life and living behind the community gates and having everything. But at the same time, I was always hurting. I was always wondering, why did he never come see me play Little League? Why was I rejected? Why did I have to go through the pain of being beaten by my father? Those things always will stick with a person, because you never got shielded from it. And there was a process that I had to go through. It was a long process. I mean, I went my whole career separated without a father in my life. And it was very difficult to not get hugs and say, I'm proud of you. My father really only showed up when I got to the major league levels. Well, okay, I've already been successful at that time. What happened about the childhood when I was left separated and needed a hug and needed to see you at the Little League field and be proud of me? I just never had the opportunity to have that. So those things were very difficult to live with for a very long time until I had to go through the healing process and getting well on the inside.
And I've heard you say, Pastor, that you have forgiven your father and you've made amends. You made amends with your father. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was part of my getting well. My father was in the hospital, and I went to see him, and the Lord has spoken to me about going to my father and repenting to my father and asking my father to forgive me, because two wrongs don't make a right. And what people don't understand, the forgiveness wasn't for him. The forgiveness was for me, so I can get free and get delivered on the inside of holding him hostage all these years in my life. Because we hold people hostage over things that have happened to us and what they've done to us, and we can never get well from that. And I was so thankful, that the Lord was able to speak to me and remember that He forgave me for my wrongdoing in life. And so I needed to forgive him for his wrongdoings, because we don't really know where people come from and their lives and what happens in their lives and households. We look at households and we think households are well, when we see people come out the household, but we don't know the whole house could be burning up on the inside, and it could be all kind of problems and dysfunction. And in my life, that's what it was. And so me to be able to get to a place with my father and really ask him for forgiveness for my wrong or keeping him out of my life and my career, it was a very touchy moment. I just broke down and laid in his lap and I cried so hard, because I knew I was wrong and I needed to get healed, and I wanted him to be healed too.
Wow, that's incredible, and I take my hat off to you for that. It's very hard to forgive ourselves sometimes. It's very hard to forgive our parents if we feel like they didn't do the right things for us. And so it's incredible that you found the power to do that, to forgive yourself and to forgive your dad.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, because when I look back at my career and when I was playing and look at all the success I was having, but at the same time I was still broken. I was still hurting because of this relationship. Family's relationships are real, and family relationships hurt when you don't heal those relationships. And I think that's why so many people never come to the grips of getting well, and that's why we find other things to try to escape, the real feeling of what's really happening in our life. Because families are important. Either way we look at it, it's an important thing in all our lives. And if we don't say that, then we don't really understand why we're here. Because there's nothing like having your family ties and your family relationships mended together for the good. And all of us. And when we can get to that place and be able to do that, it is the greatest feeling that one can ever receive inside of himself, is to have the healing process that comes and take place in a family.
It's interesting you say that. I've heard it said that we cannot truly move forward in our lives unless we are complete in our relationships with our parents.
Yes. I mean, it is so true, because you know what? They are our parents no matter what. No matter what the circumstances are, they brought us here. And we need to be able to come to a place where we can overcome the difficult situations that happen and move forward. I find more people today are stuck because of that. And they can't get well because they won't let go of it. And it's a place where you have to be able to come, where you have to be able to let go of that and be able to move forward. And it takes work. It's not an overnight miracle, because you look at your family situations, you didn't get in these problems overnight. That was a long-term deal of dealing with it, the crisis that's inside your household. Now, to be able to get out of it, it's going to take some work.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful thing. And a big aha for me, and I didn't have any huge grievances, at least the way it sounds like you did with my parents. But look, we all have our issues. My parents got divorced when I was 5. That's a tough thing. And even though they both loved me and my sister, it's a fracture, and it's a huge change that's upsetting as a child. Um, but all that said, there is a way to complete with our parents. And a big aha for me was understanding that whatever grievance we may or may not have with our parents, one thing is true of every parent and every child, which is your parents loved you and you love them. And they may have expressed it in a way that you think is terrible, and they might have, you suffered, at least what I've heard from you say in other places, some serious abuse along the way. Um, but in spite of that, your father still did love you.
Yeah, no matter what. I mean, it's just that growing up, you don't know what he saw in his life from his household. So we can always project, that everybody should be well, but that's not the case. There's no being well here. We all got some kind of things that we have to overcome, and in our lives, with our families and parents and stuff like that. And just like my own kids, they probably felt rejected. When I was out there lost and I wasn't around, and I got well, and now I'm a big part of their life, and all they really know is that dad is different, and that's the great thing. It's a great place to be able to come to with your parents, and no matter what has happened in your household, they love you, and we need to learn to accept that, regardless of the struggles, because everybody has to go through some type of struggles as a family.
Now, how do you think about being a dad today? I know that you have this gigantic family with your wife. Uh, it sounds like maybe you got a baseball team on the come here.
No, yeah. I know. I always say that we have our own starting nine, and family is important. I mean, I think that's really the key, to everything. Your kids are important, regardless of what kind of struggles they have, and we realize that because you look at the struggles you had when you were a kid, and in your household, and then you look at the struggles when you become a parent. You look at the struggles that your kids are going to go through. Why? Because of brokenness. There are broken situations, marriage, divorce. All these type of things come into play. Blended families, all these things come into play, and all these things are real issues. And you learn to deal with them. You learn to battle with them, and you learn to deal with them, and you learn to love your kids no matter what. And that's one thing I've learned. It's so important is to love my kids no matter what. They are mine. They belong to me. I don't care what they do. I got to deal with it, and I got to love them through it.
Even if you make me want to kill you, I'm still going to love you.
No. Oh yeah, you know that, Christopher. They make you want to kill you. They surely make you want to kill them sometime. But I understand that. I understand my parents felt the same way about me. So now you start to realize, because your parents always tell you, wait till you have your own kids and you have to deal with them.
Now, I find it fascinating that you and your wife, Tracy, wrote this book called Imperfect Marriage. Because, a lot of people want to present an image in the world of the perfect marriage or the perfect life. So, maybe touching back on losery, why did you want to call your book The Imperfect Marriage and talk about, the challenges and some of the, if you will, the losery in that aspect of your life?
Well, because there's nothing perfect. There's nothing perfect about life, period. There's always going to be some roller coaster rides. It's like getting on a roller coaster ride, and there's the turn, the twist, and the loop. And that's real life. You're going to go through that in relationships and everything, and marriage and everything. And it's how you overcome that and how you work through that, because you have to work through things. I think a lot of times, in our society, people want to say, well, I have this perfect life. No, you don't, because none of us do. I have to work through things to make things better and keep creating new things in our life. So I think that's why it was really so important to be able to write a book like that, because there's nothing imperfect. Everything is imperfect about us. And we just need to come to a place and understand that we don't have to pretend like we have a perfect situation, because when we do, now we ask for trouble, because when things comes, and I always tell people, when the storm comes, what do? See, either you in a storm, or storm is coming, or you coming out of a storm of life. And what do you do when those three things happen in your life, and you have to learn to balance that?
Yeah, I've heard you say that, and I find that fascinating. You're either in a storm is coming, or you're coming out of a storm.
Right.
Why do you think that? I mean, it may be obvious, but let me ask you the obvious question. Why do you feel like that is true, Pastor?
Well, because that's part of life. That's part of what we live with. That, like I said, there's nothing perfect about it, because us, we are people. We have failures. We fall short, and we put people up and think, well, this person is great. I look at them from a distance, but I don't really know the insecurities that you have inside yourself, because we all have insecurities. We all have low self-esteem, and it's not until we build that up in our life, from the life challenges that we go through, and now we know it's okay. It's okay to be in the storm. It's okay that a storm is coming, and then you're getting out of a storm. It's part of it's part of everything that's made up about us that we have to face. And when we learn that, we learn to face it, and we learn to walk through these things.
Yeah, very powerful. I'm also curious to ask you, I've read a few studies recently, Pastor, about millennials, and that the number one thing in some of the research I've seen that millennials say that they want in life is to be famous. And they would give up, there was one I read recently that said they would give up their family in order to be famous. And obviously, you're somebody who had pretty much about as much fame as an athlete, I think, can have. And you had $20 million contracts, but you had fame and a giant amount of money. And so I'm curious what your relationship to fame is now.
Well, I tell people, be careful what you ask for, because fame is a very lonely place. I didn't really ask for it. I just wanted to play baseball. I just happened to turn out to be famous as a baseball player. And I think people don't know that there's a serious price that you have to live with when you become famous. Okay, now your life is an open book. Wherever you go, whatever you do, whatever you say. And people say they will want to give up their family for fame. You don't want to give up your family for fame, because the fame is going to die out. It doesn't last forever. It's a part that you go through, and then after you're done, whatever you've done, if you're an athlete, movie star, whatever, CEO, whatever, it's going to eventually die out. Then who are you? And I tell people all the time, you got to deal with the public eye. You got to learn how to love people. You got to learn how to be nice to people. And you find most people that end up being famous, they're not very nice to people. And it's not the people's fault that you have become famous. It was you yourself that wanted to be this person. So there's a price that you have to pay being this person, and you have to learn to go out in the public, and you have to learn to be kind to people. That's the price that is of fame is, and most people don't understand that. They think people gets on their laughing nerve. Well, no, it's because you have become a person in the spotlight and people admire you. So you have to learn how to be able to treat people. And I think a lot of times people don't understand the importance of that, and they take their fame and they use it for the wrong reason. You can't use your fame for the wrong reason. You can use it to benefit others and encourage others and help them believe their dream.
And do you feel like back in the 80s and 90s when you were winning the championships and making all the money and all that, it sounds like maybe fame got to you? Is that how you think about it today, or how do you think about it?
Well, I don't really think it. I think it got me. I think what got me was being able to be in the spotlights, because everything you do, people are going to talk about. If it's good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to have something to say. And it's a matter of how do you handle it. And you have to be able to handle it. And I think I handled it as well as I could. I've always been a hurt person, and hurting others because of my selfishness. And I just realized that, that's part of what happens in, a person being famous, because what happens when you become famous.
I don't know, Pastor.
There's no no's.
Never been famous.
Everybody says yes.
Everybody says yes.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Everybody tells yes. You can do whatever you want. There's no no's. People don't tell you, well, you shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't do that. And everybody's there to just co-sign everything that you do, which is very sad, because that leaves people that are famous in a position where they can never be well. They can never be real if it's always yes, and never get to the point of telling you, no, you shouldn't do that. And I kind of wish I would have had people in my life that would say, no. I had more people in my life love to hang around me because you're famous and you can get into everything you want to, and everybody would say yes because it's a free ride to get in.
Yeah. And I got to ask you, if this is too personal, Pastor, then you just give me a gentle kick under the table, so to speak. You made so much money. You had some of the biggest sports contracts of all time at the time, and you've talked about how you ended up back at your sister's place in debt, $3 million, and so what's it like to just go from having what must feel like an infinite amount of money to being millions of dollars in debt in a very relatively short period of time?
Well, for me personally, I was never consumed with the money part of it. I was more um, happy about the fact that I got a chance to play Major League Baseball. So I was giving everything away to people and families and stuff like that because that never really had me. And so being able to be down at the bottom and having to start over was a true gift for me. Because I just think I always wanted not to be in that place where people looked at me because of what I had. So when I didn't have it, nobody looked at me. Everybody was gone when I didn't have it. So that was a pretty good thing. But now, because now I had to look at
all
myself.
The hangers on. It's funny how the hangers on disappear, isn't it, Pastor?
Yeah, they all disappear when you're not in the spotlight no more, and you're not the life of the party. Everybody's gone, and for me, it was pretty cool because I came from a place. I was raised by my mother, and my mother taught us about life and really taught us about things and stuff is not important. What's important is your character of who you are and what you become. And for me to have that life, for so many years and be in that life for so many years and run so hard and be so lost in it and to fall and to be at the emptiness of my life and debt, 3 million and not having a driver's license. Now I needed to do some real work on myself because now I needed to really find out who am I for real. That's when the real challenge.
How old were you at that time, Pastor, when you were living with your sister and you had no money and all of that?
I was in my late 30s, 38, 39.
Yeah. And so did you feel like you were really starting over as a 38, 39-year-old man?
Yes. And I really had to start over. I really had to deal with, the wreckage of my past, the people I hurt, and then I had to find out, who am I? Okay. Because once you take the uniform off, you got to come to a place and say, who are you for real? And I think a lot of times most people are not able to cross over in that because they identify themselves in what they do all those years of doing, and they never get to a place where they examine themselves. See, every last one of us have to examine ourselves in our life. And it's going to come a point in your life, either you will do it or you won't do it, or you'll still be the same, or you'll still be chasing after the same dream. Yeah, I could have been in baseball. I could have been working in baseball, but I knew I didn't need to work in baseball. I had played 17 years in the major leagues. I've been successful. I traveled all around. I've done all kinds of things, and it kept me separated. I was broken, empty. Got addicted to drugs. I got addicted to alcohol, women, the lifestyle. Got suspended from Major League Baseball 3 times. So I needed to close the chapter on that of my life. It had to come to a point. Yes, I worked in it for a few years, and then I realized this is no longer for me. I need to get away from this, and I need to find a new chapter in my life.
That's a powerful thing, isn't it? Particularly from an identity point of view, because clearly to make it to the elite levels, to win the championships, and get all the accolades that you did. I mean, you had been playing baseball and sort of in your mind, been a baseball player since you were a very little boy, yes?
I started off when I was young, and it was, Pete Rose was my idol. I watched the Cincinnati Reds and fell in love with Pete Rose because
Charlie Hustle.
Charlie Hustle. He didn't have all the talent that most players had, and I saw his uniform being dirty, and I saw him diving into bases. And I said, "Now that's a baseball player, and that's what I want to do. I want to be able to play baseball like that." And so, when I was a kid, that was my dream, and I just knew inside that I was going to do it because what happened was my pain of the dysfunction of my home led me to my greatness, and my greatness would eventually lead me to my destructive behavior because I never got well on the inside. A lot of times we all look great on the outside, but how do I look on the inside? If I'm not well on the inside, then there's no happiness, there's no joy for me.
And so, Pastor, from an identity point of view, you become literally a baseball hero. I remember you so well from that time. And I'm curious from an identity point of view, when you decide I'm not going to, I'm going to retire as a player and I'm not even going to really be that connected to baseball anymore. Did you have a moment where you thought, well, if I'm not a baseball player, then who am I? Or what was that transition like for you?
Well, the transition was very difficult to figure out who I was. It's always going to be very difficult to figure out who you are after you have played for so long, and this has been your identity for this long of a period. So I had to come to a place where I had to really important in life. Where did I come from? I come from the background of losing everything because of addiction, and I needed to get wealth from that standpoint. That's the first step I really had to step into, is getting wealth from that point in my life. And when you start tackling those real things, those real issues of why you use and why you cover up who you are, then you start to move forward. And I think most people never give themselves a chance, to be able to move forward because they never stop. And for me, I never stopped at the period of playing ball and everything. Then when I got out and had the troubles, then all of a sudden I realized that I needed to take the uniform off. I no longer was a man. I needed to work on my real core issues that was down inside of me. The problems of why I hate myself, why I hate my father, and why I have such an emptiness on the inside. So I started working on myself and started moving in a different direction, and the pieces started coming together. But it was a process. It wasn't an overnight thing. I think a lot of times people think it's just an overnight miracle. You become this totally different person. No, it's after you bring discipline in your life, like I had to bring in baseball, and start disciplining my life and start walking a different way and walking away from the things that were not good for me, and start walking in a different direction and dealing with people and letting people help me too at the same time. Because for this thing is about people helping people. It's just not about you doing it yourself. You can't do it alone, and that's what we all need to understand. We need to be people that are able to help people, and I found people to help me, and that's why I'm so adamant about helping people, because people help me.
It's interesting you say that, Pastor, because I find that the longer I live, the more uh, open my eyes are to that, the more I experience it in my own life. Sometimes people say nice things to me, and one I hear often, because I started at 18 with nothing. I started my first company and kind of went on from there. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, congratulations on being a self-made man." And I appreciate the compliment, but there is part of me that has a little bit of a negative reaction, because I know what the truth is, and the truth is I'm not a self-made man. I've had a tremendous amount of help and love and support, and people who bet on me when there was no reason to, and people who forgave me when there was no reason to, and so.
Right.
I wonder if you feel that way, but the longer I'm alive, the more grateful I feel for the incredible contributions of the people, both in my past and in my present.
No question. I mean, you feel that way, those who believed in you and those that didn't believe in you, those that talked about you, those that cut you off and cut you up. You take it all. You have to take it all, because it's all a part of, what the journey of your life is. And if you can see it all and put it in one bag and just know it's all pieces of part of my life have played a part of getting me to where I'm at today. And if you just say, well, I wish this wouldn't have happened. No, some certain things had to happen for me to be able to become who I am today. Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I think a lot of times we take that for granted, when things happen. We want the good, but we don't want to deal with some of the bad. We don't want to never face the bad part of it. We're excited about the good and the cheers and the success and this and that, but along comes bad things too. You have to accept that too, because that's a part of who you are. And there are people that were always there and that will never give up you, and who played a big part of you moving forward and getting to where you need to get to be successful.
Yep. Amen. Hallelujah.
Yes. You got it, brother.
Now, I'm curious as well, Pastor. I must ask you about your foundation, the Darryl Strawberry Foundation, and your commitment to kids with autism. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we got involved with that. My wife got involved with that, and when we lived in St. Louis, it was the first ministry that we got involved with. And we kind of walked into a center to visit some kids, and they were autistic, and I never knew what autistic children were. And I was just completely blown away that kids were like this. And they were the most amazing kids. They would let you hug them. They were friendly. They were different. They were different than anything that I've ever experienced. And I thought, wow, what a great way to help. What a great way to help a family. And I started learning about it and started doing my research on it and homework on it, and realizing that the families are struggling, with an autistic child, and I started realizing that marriages are being broken, because of that, because the husbands didn't sign up to have this kid, and all that they have to go through, and my heart just felt for them, and I just got involved and decided, well, I'm gonna do a foundation for them, and I'm gonna raise money, and I'm just gonna give it to the program. I don't want a staff. I don't want to make it about me. I want to make it about them and helping them and making it about a program, and just showing God's love to them and showing that they are important regardless of what their struggles are. Because when you start understanding that families can't go out, they can't go out, they can't believe a kid that's autistic at home most of the time, because he might have a meltdown, and the only one knows how to deal with the meltdown is involved with that. And I just pour my heart into it, and I started helping and started doing celebrity golf tournaments and raising money and just giving the direction to them to help their programs.
Well, that's amazing. It's an area of tremendous interest for me. We not that long ago were privileged to have Dr. Darryl Treffert on Legends and Losers, who you may know up in Wisconsin. An incredible man in this world, and I just love that you do that. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. I know how important your faith is. I know how important your ministry is. Obviously, you became a pastor a while ago. And so I must ask you, what's the role of faith, both in the healing part of your journey and as well in your life today?
Well, it's knowing that faith is all about finding hope in God and God's love, because He'll never leave you or forsake you. People will, but also it's about when you get to that place and you understand who you are. It's about loving people. It's about caring for people right where they're at. It's not about judging people and pointing fingers at them and saying, we look at their life. For the grace of God, they go, I or all of us, could be in one of those situations today. If something happened, we don't know the trauma, we don't know the abusive tragedy of what happens in people's lives, and we need to really just meet them right where they're at. And I think that's the role that it plays in my life, is meeting people right where they're at and showing unconditional love to them, because we all deserve it. And no one's ever signed up to be broken. I don't think you or me would say, well, let me just come here and be broken, and live a miserable life. That doesn't happen. Something happens in people's lives, and because it happened in my life, and when I realized that, being in a position to speak life into people and encourage people is such a great feeling, because it's no longer about you. When you can get rid of your ego, because so many of us have the ego of society that tell us we're bigger than life. And, the ego is a 3-letter word, easing God out. And so we
that's a good one. I haven't heard that one, Pastor.
Yeah, we find ourselves playing. We find ourselves playing that and believe that we're so much better because we have better situations than others, and we're no better than anybody else. We just have a better situation. We're still people with faults, and we're still going to have some struggles, and we're still going to have to overcome life. So that's what ministry is all about. That's what you pour into people, to make sure you encourage them that their life matters regardless of what is happening, what's the condition of your life.
It's interesting what you say here. I watch people in little moments. And so, for example, I'm sure you've had this experience of maybe going to a restaurant with somebody that maybe has a little too much of that ego you talk about, Pastor, and maybe they treat the server poorly, or somebody like that, or some other kind of service worker, or some other person that they think for whatever reason is not as successful or is not as something than they are, and they treat them differently than maybe they treat you. And that sets a big flag off in my head because I know what it's like to be somebody who, maybe people wouldn't think is that important or that worthy of respect. And so I'm always curious when somebody who is successful or well known or something along those lines treats people who differently because they think they're a different class or a different status than they are.
Yeah, that's so true. Because you think of the status of your situation is so much far better than theirs is, and you treat them like you said in the restaurant. People you see with status, they treat people like they're less than, and I really hate that when I see that because nobody's less than. Just because you're successful and you don't know where people come from, so why would you put yourself above someone else? And we're none of us above anybody. And when we come to realize that one day in our life, hopefully most people that have achieved great things will understand that. Most of the time they won't, because they think because of what they have makes them, and it really doesn't. It just makes you have more. That's all it really does. It doesn't. It just means that you've been more privileged than other people. And I look at people as people because we all have something to give to each other in this society of ours. If our society was better, it wouldn't be broken like it is today. We wouldn't be dealing with the epidemic that we have today with opiates and heroin that's killing all these young people. We got more young people who are affected because they don't believe their life matters. They don't believe nobody cares. They believe people reject them because of the way they look or the way they dress, and we got to stop that. We got to stop being those type of people or rejecting people that walk in and look different. We just got to accept them as who they are and love them as who they are. And if we can ever get back to that place, this society should be a better place. It's not about black, white, blue, brown. It's not about how successful you are. We are all created the same, and we need to all understand that and realize that and learn to deal with each other in such a just humble way. Just humble yourself. It's so much greater to ability and not be above anybody else.
Although I will say I couldn't agree with everything you said more. And the one caveat I'd say is guys with our hairdo are much sexier, don't you think?
Hey, I tell you what, we don't have to worry about it when we wake up in the morning after we get out of the shower. It's just, there we go. Just
we're ready for
keep
action.
It moving. Yeah, we don't have to gel up and do all these things, to try to make ourselves look different.
And so, Pastor, how do you spend your days and your weeks and your months now in your life? How do you split your time between your ministry and your foundations? And obviously you've written multiple books and you're out in the world giving talks. And so tell me some more about what your life looks like today.
Well, it's more of a travel. I'm on the road most of the time. I'm traveling and speaking at a lot of events, speaking at a lot of churches, and involved in really helping people. I'm on the White House board for substance abuse and mental health board to try to help that area to bring about more faith programs to help people, from a spiritual component. I think that's such a key to what's happening today. So a lot of my time is with others, and I spend a lot of time being a dad, with my kids. They play college sports and they graduating from college, and I'm proud of them. And still dad, they still need you after college. So the plate is full. It's never a dull moment. It's always something going on, and I'm just excited that I'm able to be able to do that and be a part and invest in my children, and invest in others is so important. I travel the country. Like I said, I've been to the state of Ohio maybe 5 or 6 times this month because of the epidemic they have there with the Attorney General and trying to mobilize the churches to get involved to help people spiritually so they can, they have 15 deaths a day. So when you see all these things and you understand all these things, there's never a moment wasted. It's always being in the middle of the field, in the middle of the pack, trying to make a difference.
And Pastor, if I'm somebody who maybe is struggling with addiction myself right now, or I have somebody I love in my life who is struggling in some of the ways that you did in the past, what would you suggest I do?
I would suggest that you love them, but don't tolerate the behavior. It's about always
I'm
loving
sorry,
them, but you don't
Pastor.
have to
You
tolerate
cut
behavior
out.
because
You cut
parents
out there.
get what they.
I'm sorry, Pastor. I'm
Okay, can
sorry.
you hear me now?
Yeah, you cut out there. You said love them, and then I missed what you said after that.
Love them. You can love them right where they're at, but you don't have to tolerate the behavior of who they are. I think that's one thing people start to do. They start enabling him, saying, "Oh, this is my baby." But if you continue to enable him, he's going to continue to manipulate the situation until he goes and gets some help and gets serious and get well. And sometimes that means you got to let go. You got to let go of them so they can go ahead and find that bottom. And so many have to die. It's part of it. I don't know why, but if they're not going to stop, they will run through you like a tornado if you continue to tolerate the behavior and enable them. I think, but always loving them is the most important thing, because love brings healing. And if we can use the love, and encourage them and keep encouraging them, maybe one day they'll really know that you truly love them and that you believe in them, and you always have, because you keep being the same person and you never point your finger at them saying, "Why can't you just stop? Why don't you do this?" That's not loving them. Just love them in a conversation where I really want you to get some help. I'm not going to enable you anymore. I'm not going to tolerate the behavior, and you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do so you can get well.
Very, very, very powerful. And when I hear you talk, this may sound corny, maybe sound like I've been living on the West Coast too long. My eyes get a little teary, Pastor, because obviously knowing your past and how open you are about it, and some of the behaviors you exhibited, to hear you talk about love the way you do today, it really is moving.
Well, thank you. But because I know that's what happened to me. People love me and they didn't tolerate my behavior, but they loved me and they kept loving me. And I learned that as I started to get well, what was really important in life. It was really important for us to learn to love people who are afflicted, who are struggling, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol, whatever they are. We have to learn to love them regardless, because there's something going on the inside. And we don't know what's going on the inside because we're not on the inside. We've never been in their life. We don't know what happened to them. So we can all point fingers, but you never lived in their house, and you don't know if they've been rejected. You don't know if they've been beaten. You don't know if they've been sexually assaulted or whatever, they've been through. Something has happened to make them come to a place where their brokenness has played a big part of the emptiness, and now they're all addicted, to opiates and heroin, and they're young. Today what we're looking at, this is not an older generation. This is a young generation, and they're smart. They're very highly educated, because of social media and cell phones and all these things that they know. But at the same time, they don't believe that it matters. When you see young girls, when I've seen young girls come to my treatment center and been there 2 or 3 times, and they tell me they've already OD'd 2 or 3 times, and they're 19 and 20 years old, something is wrong. Something has happened. And we need to always give them a hug and let them know that you are loved, you are cared for. We care for you. And that's what's really important.
It does seem like, and I know this maybe makes me sound like I'm turning into that old man, when we were kids, but it does seem a little more broken today in our world, in that we have more divisiveness in our country, at least than it seems like maybe at one point, or maybe it's just being exposed more. I don't know. Obviously, the Me Too movement has opened our eyes to many things. The discussion about race in our country. Obviously, you mentioned the opioid crisis. I don't know if most people realize, Pastor, I believe we have a crisis occurring with men in our country. We have more men opting out of the workforce than ever before. We have more men living at home with their parents to a much older age than before. And so there's a real crisis of manhood, I think, going on in our country. And so it's interesting that there seems to be a lot of these problems affecting so many families. Do you have a sense for why that is?
Yeah, you make a good point there. With men, the dysfunction that we have with them, but they've got consumed with so many other things. they've been entertained by internet. They've been entertained by gaming, living in parents' home and not rising up and just sitting in front of the television playing a game all day or porn or whatever has captured their eyes. And I think it's the social media, the social area, the time that we live in. Everything is right at their hands, and there's no discipline. See, where there's no discipline, things happen. Things happen in people's lives, and all of a sudden they get consumed with them, and they can't get away from. Now all of a sudden they fell into a bondage. They fell into a major trap, and they can't get out of it. And men are struggling real hard to find the right identity. Like you said, living home with parents, and parents having to evict you to get you out of the house. And you're 35 years old. You should have been gone a long time ago. What are you doing? And this is the society that we're living in. I think like I said, I always go back to what social media has done. It has created a monster inside of life, for men, and making, instead of them rising up and getting up and going to get an opportunity for where I could just be an online project, and maybe I can make it that way and be successful. And that's not going to happen for everybody. That happens for some people, but that's not going to happen for everybody. So I think that's what the greatest challenge that we're dealing with today is social media that keeps people captivated into negative things.
And so what advice would you have for men in general and maybe particularly for young men, Pastor?
For the young men, I would like them to really educate themselves with some biblical principles. I think we've gotten away from that. I think we've gotten away from faith. And I think faith is the only hope that's going to bring that younger generation back. The middle guys in the middle that are consumed with so many other things. It's hard to say what's going to really change them. I know if they operate in the principles, their life will change. But most won't operate in the principles. They want to have fun and they want to sleep. They want to sleep all day, and then they want to play games all night. That's not a life. I mean, them to rise up and so they can find the happiness of who they are and find out why they're created.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Pastor, anything else before we wrap up our discussion today?
No, Christopher, I think you've been amazing. I appreciate Southern California. You're right down by the beach, and I'm a little jealous about that, because I know what California's like. I'm born and raised there and went to Crenshaw High, and I miss it, but I know it's a lot of traffic out there, so I wouldn't want to live out there anymore because of all the traffic.
We're in to be clear, I'm in Northern California, in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I know you're in Northern California. That's what I'm saying. It's different on that side over there, but on the other side of California, Southern California, where I grew up, I know a lot about Northern California, the Bay Area. I spent some time up there, and I see your Warriors are up there doing what they do.
We've had some incredible basketball here of late, and over the last couple of years, and the rivalry with LeBron and the Cavs has really been an incredible thing to watch.
It has really been incredible. I mean, it's been incredible when I think about the Bay Area and what the Golden State Warriors are about now, and Steph Curry and all those guys, Durant, and what they brought over there. Because they didn't have that. That was a football town. That was the Oakland Raiders backyard over there in that part of that area. And of course, on the other side, the 49ers and the Giants are over there.
I must say, as a fan, I mean, of course, I've never played any professional sports, but as a fan, living here is maybe Mecca. I mean, there's always one or two teams doing great things in one or two sports. And certainly the Dub Nation has taken over.
I know, right? It always have been like that up there in that area, because the 49ers were the hit of all time. The Giants have been very successful. A few years, the World Series, and now you have the Golden State Warriors over there just really taking over.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, Pastor, I can't thank you enough for your time. You're always welcome at my home in Santa Cruz. You always have a bed here. It'd be wonderful to see you in person. I want to thank you. You have given me tremendous memories as a fan, and I loved you as a player. You were one of those players that you could, when you were on the field, we just couldn't take our eyes off you. And to see where you are in life, how you've come through the fire and your commitment to giving back and living the great life that you're living. You're an incredible inspiration. And I just want to thank you for your generosity and for being with me today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you and just to really talk about life and really what's important and just to encourage people. And to your listeners, just be encouraged, that your life is important.
Well, thank you, Pastor. And may I say, God bless you.
All right. God bless you too. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you. Whew. Now, that was a real raw conversation. If you love Darryl Strawberry as much as I did, we'd love it if you shared him on social media. And if there's somebody in your life who you think would benefit from spending time with Pastor Strawberry, why not just email it to them right now? And if you could find it in your heart to write us a review on iTunes or wherever else you experience podcasts, that would be awesome. They make a huge difference to everybody here at Legends and Losers, and they help other people discover the show. All right. We would like to thank Don't Give Up on Me, Shedding Light on Addiction with Darryl Strawberry. Pick up a copy today. It's an amazing, inspiring book. HarperCollins Instant Classic, Play Bigger, How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets. Our good friends at Equity Directory. If you are in the startup ecosystem, if you are somebody that wants to work with startups, if you're a startup looking for people who want to work with you and use equity as a big part of your compensation, check out equitydirectory.com. Our dear friends at OneLifeFullyLived.org, the nonprofit helping you dream, plan, and live your best life. Check them out. Our buddies at Interview Valet. If you're a thought leader, get your leading thoughts on some podcasts, check out interviewvalet.com. My favorite coffee, Verve Coffee, from right here in beautiful Santa Cruz. This is West Coast craft coffee, like you've never tasted it before. They're in Santa Cruz. They're in Los Angeles. They're in San Francisco. They are the coffee brand at many of the top tech companies in Silicon Valley, and they're always available at vervecoffee.com. My good buddies at Category Design Advisors. If you're an executive and you are looking to figure out how you can design your niche and get nouveau riche, check out categorydesign.com. The amazing speaker, author, and our good friend, Will Little. He's one of the most inspiring people I know. Check out willvlittle.com. And one of the books that I love from our multi-time guest, most recently on episode 126, Bill Walton. Check out Back from the Dead. It's a great read. All right, we would like to remind you that this oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network, and we would love you just a little extra if you shared the shit out of it. All rights do remain disturbed. We must warn you that this oddcast is clearly produced in a studio that does contain nuts. We'd also encourage you to be a podcast legend. Introduce two people you love to two podcasts you love. And if you can, show them on their smartphone how they find the podcast app, how they subscribe to one of your favorite shows. Hopefully one of them is Legends and Losers. But more people in the world didn't listen to a podcast last week than did. So why not be a podcast legend? Teach people baseball. Remember, there's no such thing as a participation award. Be nice to your dad. Always take time to chill your nuts. Listen to Leonard Cohen. Go ahead. It's okay to pee in your wetsuit. Don't be lame. Get out of the passing lane. If there's 30 people behind you, you're probably the problem. Get over. Thank you, Dandy Candy. I love you, Mom and Dad. And hey, Colin, this oddcast really ties the room together, doesn't it? Today, our deepest apologies go out to Bill McDermott, Chief Executive Officer of SAP. Sorry, Billy. We just ran out of time for you. That's it, my friends. Thank you so much for investing your life with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on Legends and Losers.